Is that a bath towel?
Yes, I just barely got out of the bath. That's my profile pic.
This episode is sponsored by Hired.com. Are you searching for a new job? That can be stressful, scary, and time-consuming. Pushy recruiters try to sell you on roles you don't actually want, and the job boards make you feel like you're throwing your resume into a black hole, never to be seen again. And sometimes you go all the way through the interview process just to find out at the very end that the salary, offer, or company culture doesn't match what you're looking for. Hired is the world's most intelligent talent matching platform for full-time and contract opportunities in engineering, development, design, product management, data science, sales, and marketing. We make your job search faster, focused, and stress-free. Instead of endlessly applying to companies and hoping for the best, Hired puts you in control of when and how you connect with compelling new opportunities. After completing one simple application, top employers apply to hire you. And on Hired, you receive personal interview requests and upfront salary information so you can make informed decisions about what opportunities to pursue over a condensed timeline. Hired offers access to more than 4,000 innovative employers, including big brand names like Facebook and smaller emerging startups. The size and type of company you want to connect with is totally up to you. And we help you find new opportunities in 17 major cities in North America, Europe, Asia, and Australia. Open to relocation? Let them know. Your privacy and autonomy in your job search is of utmost importance. And if you go check them out at the show's link, that's hired.com/adventures in Angular, you can get double your normal hiring bonus. So instead of $300, you get $600 for signing up at our link. That's hired.com/adventures in Angular.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Adventures in Angular show. This week on our panel we have Alyssa Nicoll.
Hello, hello.
Joe Eames.
Hey everybody.
Lukas Ruebbelke.
Why, hello there.
I'm Charles Max Wood from devchat.tv. And this week we have a special guest, and that's Aysegul Yonet. I think I got that close to right. I'm always worried every time you come on the show.
Thanks, Charles. Yeah, you did great.
Now, you're going to be speaking at Angular Dev Summit about augmented reality, and we have you on today to talk about virtual reality and visualizations.
You gave it away. I was keeping it a secret.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, Chuck.
Way to go, Chuck.
Anyways, let's go to picks.
Right. So one thing that I'm wondering about, just to get us rolling, is can you really do VR with Angular?
Yes, we can. Why not?
We are so cool.
True. Well, VR is a different API. As we are using any other kind of API, we can use WebVR and encapsulate it with our Angular application and create reusable components. That's why I really like using them together.
So what does that actually look like? Actually, let me back up. Do you want to give us just a brief explanation of how WebVR works? That way we can ask intelligent questions about how Angular talks to it and manages those components?
Sure. So it's WebVR currently is an experimental API, and it's creating 3D experiences that you can use also the gamepad API to interact with, and it uses just a different kind of rendering camera for WebVR. And the way Angular and WebVR will work together is that you can encapsulate your different components, different parts of your application inside an Angular component so that you can write more declarative WebVR experiences. Does that explain it for you?
So what do you mean by it being experimental?
Meaning that things are changing quite rapidly and it's not implemented in every browser, and you have to enable it, as far as I can remember, you have to enable it in Chrome, and you can have it with the Firefox, work with the nightly build, I believe. And for the rest of it, it's experimental because not all the browsers implement it at all. And also the implementation of the WebVR itself is changing. So it was 1.0. Now they're working on the 2.0 version, which is just like Angular, not backwards compatible. but it will be pretty much the same APIs and pretty much going to work the same way. Just some of the implementations are going to work, and some of the ways that we are going to interact with it is going to change.
Well, I have a question. So obviously it's not supported in every single browser. This is kind of a new and emerging cutting edge thing, but still I think it's viable and I think it's interesting. What kind of like environment would you have to kind of control? So I would imagine like what I'm thinking is like, doing like a VR experience on like a kiosk where you can actually control, say, okay, I'm going to target like the latest version of Chrome, and you can control the environment. Seems pretty, like maybe like that's viable. So, if somebody were actually going to do something to be consumed, what would be kind of the ideal situation given, kind of the spotty or, kind of the browser support issue around, doing VR in a predictable manner?
Great question. Well, you can check if the VR is enabled, and you can just display a message. It's true for WebVR too in so many cases. WebGL as well. It's not enabled in some of the browsers, and you just display a message and detect it at first. But other than that, I mean, once you have the browser, which is available, you pretty much have a consistent interaction with it.
So from there, like what kind of hardware, if you will, is required, to kind of appreciate this VR experience? Are we talking about like Google Cardboard? I know, for instance, the old viewfinders, they have like a VR, kind of a version. You just kind of put your phone in. What would we need to consume your amazing Angular VR project as it's released to the world, so to speak?
This is the cool thing about WebVR. So virtual reality was available before with very, very powerful hardware. You have to have a dedicated computer, and there's lots of very expensive tools to be able to experience VR. But now it's very, very accessible to everyone with it being available on the web. And Cardboard is one of the cheapest way to look at it. In so many meetups, you can get it for free in around here at least. But I believe it's around like $20 one Cardboard. Other than that, there's newer versions of Samsung. If you apply for it, you can get a Samsung Gear VR headset that comes with it for free, which is really, really cool. That's what I have at home. And you can also purchase very cheap like hand controls for it as well. And I think it's becoming more and more accessible, and it will be even more in the future. And that's the cool thing to have VR on the web. It's very, very accessible, and it's very accessible for developers as well, because you don't have to go through the Play Store or Apple Store to get your product out there.
So let's go in just a slightly different direction, because I'm already starting to think of like all the things you could do with this. Is like, and I know you also do some kind of interesting things around like education and just helping people. Is what are, just maybe off the top of your head, kind of 3 use cases that you see for WebVR and that that could be totally disruptive. So one of the things that just comes into my head is just education in general, that creating immersive experiences for people to do tours of places, or go places that they wouldn't be able to visit, or even like motor control stuff. I think we talked about last time we saw each other, but I mean, I'd love to hear, but kind of how you see even applying this this technology to really kind of disrupt some things.
There are so many very, very cool use cases that I'm still figuring out every day. One of them is on the education field. Google Expedition is creating this application for teachers to create these expeditions. So they can create all these different experiences for students, and all around the world. You can just join it with your phone, and anywhere you are, you can have access to things that you would normally not have. and it's really, really a cool thing. I didn't have a chance to catch any of it, but I hope to one day. And you can create your own experiences and share it with the world too. And imagine, I mean, we have access here to so many things, so many museums and so many exhibitions and all that. But now you can share it with anyone in anywhere with the wireless, access to a phone, which is really cool. There are so many medical applications as well. One of the things that the doctors figured out is that it's an amazing painkiller. One of the first applications that I heard of was for the leukemia patients. It's really hard to convince little kids to go through these really painful experiences of, taking the medication. But if they are immersed in a, VR experience where they're actually fighting with the disease itself, it does help with their, relief of pain as well.
Wow, I never heard of that. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, it is very cool. And apparently, with the burn victims too, it has been more helpful than any other kind of medication. The other use case I just heard yesterday was Stanford football team is using it to detect concussion because you have the ability to track the eye and figure out the severeness of the concussion. For example, in the middle of the game, somebody had an accident, then they can decide on the spot to go on with the game or not to go on with the game, or just contact a doctor at any time. Other than that, one project that I had a chance to work with was with the museum, Smithsonian Museum in Washington, D.C. Worked with Autodesk to create these experiences, VR experiences, and they use this other technology that Autodesk produced for scanning any and every artwork, including Apollo 13, 11.
That's a big scanner.
Yes. Well, it took them a long time, but it's then we took those 3D models and then created VR experiences, which is really, really cool. It's really, I don't know, I feel like it's more immersive than most of the experiences you would get in a museum. For example, if you're looking at a dinosaur skeleton, you have very limited, point of view to look at it. But with VR, you can change your own scale compared to the skeleton, and you can feel what it feels like to be a little animal next to the creature and just walk inside it. You can make yourself much bigger and, look at it from a different perspective. It's really, really cool.
And so what's interesting about VR, just to kind of complement that, is it's how the brain works in terms of how we process data and how we're constantly thin slicing information so that our brain is just taking thin slices or bits and pieces and trying to fill in, kind of the details around us. I have a Sony PlayStation VR at the office, and it's pretty incredible how your brain tries to actually fill in some of that sensory information. So one of the game's VR worlds is you're actually on a luge and you're basically going down this hill very, very fast. And as you kind of bounce over these hills, you get this sensation of being airborne, which that in itself is kind of like, pretty interesting. But what really kind of tripped me out is on a bad turn, you can kind of go off the road. As I'm doing this, gravel is flying up from my luge as I'm basically crashing. And I'm starting to feel like small pebbles like hit my face and my hands. Like my brain is trying to fill this information in as it's happening around me. And so the concept of essentially diverting a person's ability to thin slice on the bad information of like I'm in pain or these things are hurting, that human brains are very powerful. And so creating experiences like small children going through chemo, that to basically just simply by creating them an alternate set of stimuli, you can completely bypass that. And so to bring this back to Angular and kind of why we're here is, if we were going to accomplish this, if I was going to say, I'm sold, you have me, it's a game changer, where would you recommend that we start to kind of dip our toe into this? What is the equivalent of like a VR, like Hello World that we could try out?
A-Frame has great experiences, and it's really, really easy to use. And it's very much like what I was talking to you about the Angular components. It's very declarative, and you don't really have to know a lot about 3D to be able to start using it. And they really made it very easy. One other tool was one I was working at Autodesk. It's a node-based VR authoring tool. It's called Play. You can find it at play.autodesk.com. And it's an alpha. I'm not sure where it's going to go, but right now you can just take any kind of other experience in their documentation and start working with that. And it's just one drag away to create one VR experience. And it's really, really cool. It's worth playing with.
Keep going. I'm loving this, but you're just giving me bits and pieces. Like, I need the top 10 list.
Oh, okay. I see. So there is Sketchfab, where you can find lots of 3D models. I would not recommend you to create your own. But also, you can just start taking 360 pictures. Google came up with an app for Android. I'm not sure if it's available anywhere else. So you can basically take 360 pictures and then turn them into VR experiences, which you might have noticed me doing previously, but I'm not sure.
So would those 3D pictures have things like sound, or is it just an image?
It does have sound, but also the image, you can just turn around and look all around you. But it's also experimental, so it's breaking and crashing once in a while, but it's still worth playing with. But A-Frame is a really good start. I mean, they made it as easy as possible. So basically, it works great with any other framework, including Angular, and it's very component-based. As an Angular developer, you would enjoy working with it.
So,
and last, listen to our upcoming talk, and I will talk more about WebVR and creating experiences with Angular.
So when you hook this all up, I mean, you talked about A-Frame for a minute, and you said that it's set up to work nicely with a framework like Angular. So do they have components, kind of like what you get off of like Kendo UI or something, where they have built-in components that you just kind of feed data to, or how does that work exactly?
Exactly as you said, it's just like any kind of Angular component. Basically, normally WebVR is WebGL is kind of foreign to normal web developer, because it includes all these lighting and creating a scene and working with the camera and all that stuff. But they just made it easy for you. And once you have a scene, you have the lighting and you have the camera, and the VR is included as well. All you need to do is to add the objects itself. So you have components for a scene, and plus you can define your own lighting as an attribute if you like. And you can nest more components like 3D objects, like a box or anything else that you need.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's very cool. Mozilla developed it, and it has a very good documentation, and they made it as easy as it comes, and it's open source, and you can contribute to it, and works with 3JS, which has also a very good community around it.
So then how do you program the interactions with objects in your Angular/WebVR app?
So interactions are not the easiest part, I would say. But I believe 3JS is trying to solve the problem itself, so you wouldn't need to solve it for yourself. But normally, one thing you do is to work with the gamepad API. So you can take the data from any kind of controller through the gamepad. That's one way to do it. The other way is kind of using the eye tracking. And for example, if you keep looking at an object, then you kind of select that object. And that's one way of working with it without any controllers as well.
I'm just like so impressed with your extensive knowledge of everything VR. How long have you been doing this?
Not very long, actually. I mean, I have been working with WebGL for a while. So, yeah, I was dying to work with WebVR. And I had the chance to work on the tool that I was telling you about, the Play at Autodesk. And it was really fun. I mean, it's really an amazing experience. It's really, fun to watch people have their first VR experiences. I really enjoyed it very much. But everything is pretty new and, but it's very available. It's out there and there's a great community behind it too.
Now, one other thing that I'm wondering about with this is, since it is WebVR and it's web technology and we're plugging Angular into it, could I build a desktop app with Electron? Will it work in Chromium?
Yes, definitely.
And does it also work with the embedded Safari or Chrome views that you get on Android or on the iPhone with something like Ionic?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, but yeah, that's worth investigating.
But you can just put it on a website, load it up on your iPhone or Android phone, and it'll generally work.
Yes. And a great place to go if you want to take a look at the other experiences is WebVR experiences. It's very much like Chrome experiments and it's WebVR experiments. You can also reach to it through the Chrome experiments website. And they're really cool. And all you need is a cardboard to see it. And in most cases, I mean, you don't even need to have the VR itself. You can just play with them in 3D space. And if you choose to, you can look at it with a VR goggle.
Don't wait for users to report problems. Raygun gives you complete visibility on errors, crashes, and performance problems affecting your end users. You can replicate issues in seconds rather than digging through log files and having to rely on users to report errors or crashes. Raygun gives you a window into how users are really experiencing your software applications. It has full support for JavaScript and all other major languages and platforms. It takes less than 10 minutes to set up, and you can get a free 14-day trial by going to raygun.com and signing up today.
Nice. Yeah, when I was at CES this January, they had goggles, and now I've been seeing or headsets or whatever you want to call them, and I've been seeing them at Walmart now, and they're like $10 or $15. So it seems like it's fairly approachable if you have a smartphone.
I know. I mean, it's quite amazing if you think about it. Like not just VR, but AR. I just found this thing. I don't know if I should tell you now, but because it's going to be one of my choices. At the end, but there's this thing called Merge VR, which has a goggle, and also it has a cube where you can create AR experiences for kids, and it's really, really accessible. It's very affordable. The cube itself is something like $20, and the goggles are, I think, $60 or something. But if you compare it to HoloLens, which is $3,000 for a dual. I mean, it's super accessible in a very short period of time. I just can't believe it. And it's really, really exciting. And there are other smaller companies who are creating very affordable sets. I just ordered one. I supported a Kickstart project and coming from England, hopefully. Can't wait.
So one other question that I have about this is, how do you test it? Because it seems like a lot of the effects and interfaces are going to be visual. And so, yeah, I mean, I guess you can, you can programmatically get the position of something on the screen or something. But yeah, how does that work?
Great question.
Or do you just plug it in and hope it works?
Yeah, plug it in and I hope it works. It's a great question. I mean, it's really, really hard. Anything to do with, visual stuff, it's really hard to test. There is, and also develop at the same time too. There is a plugin, Chrome plugin that helps you work with the 3D space, and that's one thing that we use. But also, most of the interaction has to do with the mapping of the location, right? So that's very mathematical thing to do. So those are the things that are easy to kind of test, but otherwise it's not that straightforward.
So, question that I have, is there anybody in the WebVR space that you really admire? So if we're going to go look and say, like, well, who's really pushing the envelope or doing some really cool stuff? Is there anybody that you in particular look up to that's doing really fantastic work in this space?
Great question. A-Frame team is a two people team, and they're a great team. They did amazing stuff. Mr. Doob, obviously, he's the creator of 3JS. And just to give you a little bit of an idea, he was a designer before, a long, long time ago, obviously. And he wanted to make these things on the web, and he couldn't find a tool. So he decided to develop it himself. And he's been the sole developer. There's lots of community support now, but he has been doing it for a long, long time. And so many, companies are using what he's built for WebVR, WebGL. And now he's adding WebVR, and A-Frame team is working with them to create A-Frame and make it even more accessible, even easier to use. And also Brandon, his last name is skipping me now. He's basically the person who's implementing the WebVR on Chrome team, and they're doing a great job. Tony Parisi, if you dealt with anything WebGL, you might have heard his name. He has a bunch of books, and I think he was the person who inspired me to be a developer in the first place. I just stumbled upon his talk one day, and this was a while ago. And it was a very small room of people, and he was showing very simple 3D graphics, and he was saying, "This is the future, believe me." And, he was very passionate, and I was like, oh my God, this is so exciting, because I was doing 3D scientific visualizations, not on the web. And, I've been following him for a long time, and he's doing a lot for the community. He has meetup groups in San Francisco Bay Area, and now they're creating an open source project for Unity to create WebVR. So he's very inspirational. Thank you, Lukas. So Brandon's last name is Jones. And his Twitter handler is Tojiro. Joe, you have been awfully quiet.
Yeah, I know. I just enjoying listening to the dulcet tones of your voice.
So thank you, but your picture scares me still.
Is that a bath towel?
Yes, I just barely got out of the bath. That's my profile pic. You just barely get out of the bath.
Well, that's appropriate.
So let me ask you a question in that case. What would you want to build if you get to build a VR experience?
Well, that's a good question. What do you think? I think Chuck probably has a great answer to this. Chuck?
3, 2, 1, go.
3, 2, 1, go.
I just keep thinking it would be really interesting to... So one of my hobbies is writing fiction. And so just kind of a visual world builder where you can then go and experience the world that you're building, pulling things together. You can zoom out and zoom up to the clouds and kind of see the shape of the land, and, zoom in, move the mountains around, stuff like. I think that'd be really interesting. So kind of like the maps that you see at the beginning of like the Lord of the Rings books and stuff, just be able to kind of visualize that and then, come down and maybe design a castle or palaces or something. Anyway, I've got some crazy idea like that I think would be really fun.
So I think you just described Minecraft VR. Hashtag nailed it.
I believe somebody did that.
I'm pretty sure they did.
I'm sure it exists. I wouldn't be at all shocked.
Yeah, that's way to go for a moonshot there, Chuck. I'm totally kidding. But if I could build something, since we're here dreaming, so one of the things that I've been pretty interested in lately is jazz piano. And so I think the idea of being able to put on a headset and actually look down, and see for like a particular arrangement, like, these are kind of where, your hands go, and this is, the timing of different things. And I think maybe this might be more appropriate for like an augmented reality, but creating kind of a feedback loop where you could actually sit at a keyboard and kind of see, the person's hands, playing the keys, and then you could just kind of match them up and play it. And what would be neat is if you could actually, play with time to where, you could do it at like halftime, or even, just even kind of tick by tick to say, okay, I put my hands here, click, and you would go like next, and it would show like the next hand position. And so, the idea of being able to kind of insert yourself, with the perspective of an expert of any sort, volleyball, piano, any of these things, and just kind of experience, something and being able to inspect it and create a feedback loop. But I think definitely like for a piano, being able to actually look and see the hands, and kind of what they're doing and be able to kind of pattern after that would be, incredibly fascinating to me.
Yeah, one other thing, just to, add on to that is then imagine once you feel like you've mastered it to go ahead and say, okay, instead of having the fingering overlay, it places you in the room with the rest of the band. And so you get the accompaniment for what you're playing.
The next version of Rock Band, man. Play with the Beatles.
There you go.
The Stones. Sitting right in there looking around. There's everybody else, and you're playing along with them. I like it.
In your living room.
Yep.
So actually, since we're talking about this, and I'm thinking about this, is because I've been speaking as a technical speaker for a long time, generally I get on stage and it's kind of like the nerves just go away, and it's just like I'm so excited to share something, and I really don't get nervous. So for instance, ng-conf, those things, it's more, turns into more just pure energy and not really being nervous. On the other hand, put a microphone in my hand and ask me to sing a song in front of 20 people, and my body just falls apart. Like I just get super nervous. It's not like pleasant. And I think being able to create a situation where like you're in this environment and you're singing in front of people, but they're not real, they're just projected. I think that would be a way for people to get over like stage fright, is being able to practice in these, scenarios where they would be realistic. They'd be very terrifying, but being able to simulate that and train yourself to kind of get over that.
You could also set it up so that instead of pretending they're all in their underwear, you could actually have them all in their underwear.
Well, yeah. Depends what kind of talk you're giving or what kind of song you're singing.
Yeah.
I guess if it's an Usher concert or something, then, that just might be par for the course.
I have two news for you. That application, I think, has been built by the neuroscientists for speakers. And they are doing lots of, lots of things for stage fright, also for PTSD. So you will have the exposure therapy, basically. And the other news is, I don't know if you're coming to Angular Connect, but me, your Goldstein, and Alex, the neuroscience Alex, we are creating this workshop for Angular Connect, where we are going to connect to a VR experience through a USB guitar and create a guitar VR experience, very much like Guitar Hero. So I hope to see you guys there.
You are a mad scientist. The fact that you can even do this with like JavaScript and like web technologies is just crazy.
Well, let's cross fingers that it won't crash and burn, but I think for simple demo we will be able to do. But what actually Yuri wanted to do was to have this whole experience with everybody being able to go into the same environment, but it's really heavy. One thing, one big difference between the regular VR experiences with different hardware versus the WebVR is scalability. So browsers are a little fragile.
I'm just going to process that for a minute. Moment of silence. Okay, well, I'm going to Angular Connect then. Carrot's on the hook. I gotta go now.
To add the piano experience too. I know we are working with the guitar right now.
Well, I'll bring a MIDI controller and we can do the keyboard too.
Nice.
That's great.
So one other thing that I'm just trying to envision is, how is VR development different from web development? I mean, we have elements on the page and, we create our components, and it sounds like that's similar. But, I mean, to the extent that I, click a link or, navigate a page a certain way, or, I can, assimilate knowledge by reading what's on the page, it seems like VR just is a different animal. And so how does that affect the way that you actually write your code?
Writing the code, it's other than the interaction, it's not all that different than any kind of WebGL experience. And the tool that we were working at Autodesk was, the tool itself was created for creating just kind of like websites with 3D capabilities. So it was just one person's vision to add the VR too. It's just about the rendering of the camera to imitate the 3D immersive experience. But of course, the interaction is very different, and then usability is very different. Right now, clicking to a link and then going to another experience is kind of like clumsy, but they're working on making it more smooth on the browser side. So it will be a little bit more, exciting. But also there are so many other, considerations that you must have. For example, it's much easier to give someone a headache with a VR experience than creating a website. And, that is a different thing. Plus, I don't know, with the 3D experiences, VR or not, I feel like there's a adjustment curve for people to get used to, but I feel like, people navigate VR experiences so much better than 3D experiences on the web with a mouse, because it's so much harder to figure out like where to go, how to go to a place. But I put on the, VR headset on my mom. She's 60 something and not very, into technology. And right away, she was able to just, navigate around and find interesting things to look at. And it was really fun to watch.
And the crowd goes wild. Yeah.
Well, since we're derailing, let's do some picks.
Yeah. Please stop talking.
Should we do some picks?
Let's do it.
Two picks.
This episode is sponsored by Angular Dev Summit, coming September 11th through the 18th, 2017. Hi, it's Chuck from devchat.tv. I reached out to some of my friends in the Angular community to put on a completely free, no-travel conference for Ruby developers. We have speakers like Rob Wermald, Jeff Welpley, and others coming to speak about all kinds of topics in Angular. So if you're trying to learn Angular or you're trying to level up Angular, come check it out. The talks are happening throughout the day each day, and we'll have a chat available during each session. Attending the talks is free, but you need to register. Go to angulardevsummit.com.
All right, Lukas, what are your picks?
So I have two picks this week. The first pick is the app Fantastical. So I have a couple different emails, and people, I get a bunch of different invites across them for different reasons. And as I get busier and busier, if it doesn't exist on the calendar, it just doesn't exist. I'm probably going to forget it. And so I just started using Fantastical the other day, and it just pulls everything together in this really nice interface. And so just very quickly, I'd say, I got to do this.
Did you say it was fantastic?
Oh, it is fantastical. And I see what you did there.
Aysegul fantastic?
Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like a mix of fantastic and Aysegul, which sounds like something I want.
That's,
I mean, that's a product I could totally believe in. I believe in that kind of product.
I just trademarked that.
That and Harvey Dent.
Yep. All right. So that's my first pick. The second pick is I've been doing a ketogenic diet for the last 2 weeks. And so I kind of cycle in and out. But this is, since January, this is the first time I've committed to going into, full ketosis. And when you cut sugar out of your diet, the effects that it has on your body is just phenomenal. And so you just think clearer, your emotional kind of compass is not prone to, so much signal on the line. And I find that I sleep less, I feel better. And so I would just suggest that, if you're interested in kind of health-related things, kind of check out, what the ketogenic diet is all about. Basically, the premise is that you just cut out sugar, very aggressively in your diet because it really is, truly no poison. And so I cycle in and out. I'm not trying to get religious, but when you do that, everything just gets clearer. The fog lifts, and so I think people who are interested in those things, super viable and very effective.
I'm just going to plus one that because I did the ketogenic diet in June, and in 1 month I lost 12 pounds, and most of my diabetes markers got well under control.
Yep.
So it's crazy how awesome it is. And then I went out of it for various reasons, and I'm getting back into it now. I'll tell you, going into ketosis, no fun. But once you're there, it's awesome.
Yeah, totally worth it.
Yeah. In fact, I'll throw some pics out about that. First of all, if you're a fan of .NET Rocks, which is another podcast about .NET, Carl Franklin does a podcast about keto. It's called Two Keto Dudes. And it's funny because initially I saw it and I was like, Carl and Richard, but it's not Richard Campbell. It's another Richard that he does the show with. So if you're looking to get into it, that's a good place. Another book that explains a lot of it is Keto Clarity by Jimmy Moore. And so you can check that out. Jimmy also has a podcast called Living La Vida Low Carb. I find that the episodes are kind of hit or miss, so I tend to listen to the first 5 or 10 minutes, and then I'll decide if I'm interested in what it's about. But anyway, those are some good resources for that. And I'm finding more websites that have recipes and stuff. So last night I made keto pad thai, and it was okay. It wasn't great. But anyway, just finding new ways of making it work has been really interesting.
To that end, if I can jump in here real quick. So I haven't had hardly any, I basically consume maybe 20 grams of carbs a day for the last 2 weeks. And my wife, Rachel, was like, oh, you can there's a way to make keto cheesecake. And I'm like, whatever. And so she actually made it yesterday. And it tastes, in my opinion, better than regular cheesecake, which tends to be overly sweet. And so pretty much 3 bites in, I'm practically ready to weep in the kitchen because it's completely sugar-free and it just tastes amazing. And so you have to get a little creative about some stuff. I've become a huge fan of actually pork rinds or chicharrones, but they're a great delivery mechanism for salsa and guacamole. And even, if you're going to do tacos, you can use that. But you can find things that actually taste really, really good without sugar at all. So
yeah,
cheesecake being my big favorite one at the moment.
Recipe, please.
I will
Dude,
find it for you.
I just can't get over the name of that podcast, Living La Vida Low Carb.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. That reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where he was complaining because all of the places that have specialty back stores are all have cheesy names, and the guy says, no, not this one. It's called the Lumbar Yard.
Oh, geez. All right, Joe, do you have some picks for us?
Oh, do I ever? Well, I guess I better think about that. Rogue One. Just saw Rogue One yesterday. Again, I think that was watch number 15. Man, such a great show. Such a great show. I definitely want to pick Rogue One. I've been really enjoying that. I got an anti-pick for you. Never build a house. Never do that.
Hashtag pro tip.
Pro tip, don't build a house. It's terrible. So, yeah, I think that those are my picks. Rogue One, I'm just constantly amazed by what a great movie that is. So, there you go. Those are my picks.
All right, Aysegul, what are your picks?
So I'm going to cheat just like the last time I was here. I'm going to give more than 3, but I'm going to group them at least. So for everyone who wants to explore and, delve into WebVR a little bit, one thing that I recommend is the cardboard camera application. If you have Android, I'm not sure if it's available anywhere else. So you can take 360 pictures with that. You don't need any extra. And then you can create VR experiences where you could, let anyone look through the places that you've been to, which is really cool. There are a bunch of WebVR talks with using it with Angular that I will be doing. And also towards the end of the year, we will be recording a WebVR course for front-end masters. And Voices of VR is a great podcast to, find out about all the research that goes into it and what you can build and all the cool people working on the VR. And I really recommend that. The last two, the other podcast that I really enjoy is You Are Not So Smart podcast. It has really interesting research and discussions. I really enjoy it. It talks a lot about our biases and how we think in not very straight ways. Lastly, I think it's a great gift, the Merge VR, the Merge Cube. You can find it in Walmart, apparently. It's really cool. I think it's a great tool for kids to explore things like, skeletons or any kind of stuff. So those are my picks.
Awesome. Well, if people want to follow you, check out what you're working on GitHub or things like that, where do they go?
Oh, yes. So my Twitter handler is AYS something, because it's very hard to spell my name. And my GitHub is YONET. And I'm actually working on few Angular components for creating WebVR. And if you want, just ping me and nudge me more often so I'll work faster.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and wrap this show up. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
All right. We'll catch everyone next week.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.